Hello everyone, this is Akira, this is Megumi, and we are doing another special online event. This time around, like we're doing something that's like for like Islamic people, like halal. That's the kind of food that that like that limits the certain number like units like to for use, right? And then like we're doing like halal miso ramen, and we get asked a lot about okay, so like can you guys like make some ramen noodles, like ramen dishes, like that are like for halal, right? And so that's what we're doing today, and we're doing this like particular type of like miso ramen that's like great for halal people. So let's get started. So let me go through this like briefly, explain like what halal, and then um, I'm just gonna do the just brief kind of explanation of like halal miso ramen, and um, I'm not even sure like you have like pronouncing this like word like halal, but like it is a so like religious restriction on like what's allowed to eat, right? And like so that's for Islamic people, like people who believe in this particular religion, Islam, right? And then in the world population, right? The world population of Islamic people is said to be 1.8 billion people, right? So that's a lot of people who believe in this region, right? So there's definitely market for it, and so what I'm going to talk about is like is going to be like mainly what's okay, what's not okay, and what's kind of like in the middle, like it kind of depends on like if these types of like ingredients are treated in certain ways, then it's okay. But like if they're not, like then it's not okay. And so for halal, right, and yeah, so like what's okay would be like like ingredients like seafood, like eggs, like dairy and honey, like pungent roots, right? Like why I list like pungent roots here is that like what I'm gonna talk about more later when I talk about like Buddhist vegetarian diet. And so what's not okay, right? Like it's definitely not okay. Like of course, like that's famous like pork, right? And alcohol. Yeah, especially like seasoning, like some of the seasonings that use alcohol in their production, and like actually some of them like contain like a slight amount of like alcohol as well. So like, what it's not like some of the seasonings are not allowed to to be used like for halal food. And so what's kind of gray area, right? Like what's maybe okay, but like depending on like how they are treated, right? And basically for like halal, the like these would be like the beef, like chicken, seafood with no scale. Well, for example, like eel. That's one thing, one fish that like that doesn't have any scale. But like, so how they are like slaughtered, or like how they're like if they're slaughtered by like people like who believe in like like Islamic people, or believe in this religion, or like they're like slaughtered like in a ways that are governed like kind of decided by like Islamic laws. Or so it really kind of depends on the um, you know so that how they're treated. It's like it's kind of dangerous, right? Like when we are trying to create dishes, right, for halal, right, the Islamic people, it's kind of dangerous to like kind of think about like using these English right here, like in a gray area, right? So, and then we also like think about, there are levels of tolerance and strictness, like, like at individual levels, right? Like, so people, like some people like actually, I've seen, people like who believe in Islamic religion, right? And eating pork, right? Eating bacon, drinking alcohol. So it kind of really depends on the individual tolerance, and like how much like they believe, how much actually how strict they follow the rules, like or the laws like was set by the religious like restrictions. So it's so depending on like so like very very strict religious people, right? They would not like they probably avoid like everything altogether, right? But like it really kind of depends on yeah. So level of tolerance, like level of like strictness that like individually like they follow, right? So and then so talking about vegan, like it's not halal, but like it's vegan, right? Vegan. So what's okay, right? It would be like very, very small list, right? Like it's very short list, like tangerine roots, right? And the alcohol, and the seasoning, like they use alcohol. And then vegan, the culture of vegan may be, right? Like it's kind of hard to like measure, right? But like more probably 80 million people in the world. So it's fairly, it's been like getting larger and larger, right? And like people believe, like people follow these strict like rules and diet, like because of the belief, right? Or like, yeah, it's like strong. They don't want like they're like really concerned about the global warming, like they want to like reduce like minimize like carbon footprints, like I mean on an individual level. That's great. And so they do not eat like consume pork, like all these like animal type ingredients, dairy, right, and egg, like any kind of ingredients that have to do with like animal, right? So we really have to be very careful, like like well they don't like do milk like butter or anything, right? And the other day, like I was talking with like my colleague, like who was asked to yeah, give them like the recipes for the noodles that are black in color, right? And then they are thinking about like using, because they mentioned like, okay, the noodles have to be vegan, right? And then, like they mentioned that like, okay, they may use like squid ink, right? But squid ink like, comes out of, well, animal, right? So, but that's not vegan. So, you can't use that. Yeah, I said, then, but like, yeah, so something like that has to be concerned, right? Like when you're making um, dishes for like vegan, right? And Buddhist vegetarian, right? Like this is kind of I don't know, like I don't know the statistics for like Buddhist like vegetarian like population in the world, but like there are a lot of them, and then was like gray area like alcohol seasoning, like dairy, like egg, like honey. These are kind of gray. Like I think it has to do with like the level of tolerance, like an individual level, like strictness, how strictly they follow the rules. And then like was like all these animal type. And one thing like that, you can notice that like in pungent roots, right? Pungent roots, like there are five types of them. Garlic, like spring onions, like Asian chives, scallion bulbs, and chives. And so like all these pungent roots that are said to like well excite Buddhist monks. They're not allowed to eat, like they don't eat, they don't consume them. So so when you like dealing with like all these like diets, right? Different diets, like restrictive diets, you really want to know like what's okay, what's not okay, and then what's in the gray areas, right? So that like what to use, like what not to use, right? Like for when you're targeting certain you know people with a certain diet. So um, yeah, so like alcohol. So vegan is like probably when we're like making some dishes like for vegan ramen, right? Focus on vegan ramen. Um, I think it would be like really safe area, right? Like for like if you make like vegan ramen, then like probably any kind of diet can take, right? Take it, but like we have to be careful like when we are using alcohol seasoning, and we have to take it out from the. So when we think about okay, like vegan ramen, that can be consumed by like Islamic people, like consumed by the Buddhist vegetarian, right? Then it's like we have to like remove the pungent roots, we have to remove the alcohol, right? So it's like it has to be. they have to like go there, right? So like so okay, so what we can use, right? So like so there are some ingredients that are left for us to be able to use, right? For the ramen dishes that are okay to eat, right? By all the people, right? So and then they had to be good, right? They had to be good so that even though like it doesn't contain like any kind of alcohol seasoning, like kind of doesn't contain like any kind of pungent roots ingredients, because they are so good that anyone can eat, like regardless of like the religion, right? So that they believe. So that's what we're aiming for, right? And so that's what we're doing today. So, but this is halal miso ramen today, so we're not gonna go that extreme today, but like we're going for the really good halal miso ramen dish today. So. Um, as far as like noodles are gonna go, right? And so later we are going to our kitchen, and our instructor is gonna show us the sample ramen dish like of halal miso ramen. But like, so we had to make some like noodles first, right? And then like bring noodles there so that like the instructor can cook them for the this dish, right? So, but like as far as the noodles are concerned, right? And so miso ramen is typically kind of in the middle and relatively thick. It's like 1.8 to like maybe like between like 1.8 and 2.5. They're not that thick, but like they're kind of in the middle or relatively thick, and then they are usually like we have an image of like miso ramen noodles being like curly and thick, right? And then like yeah, it's like yellow. We have the image of like a strong image of like Sapporo miso ramen, right? So like yeah, we can't really get rid of that image, right? So we're gonna go stick with that today. So yeah, so let's get started on noodle production. And yeah, so I'd like to have Megumi making these ramen noodles today. And yeah, so we prepared all the ingredients. I mean, Megumi did, but so for miso ramen, right? Like we have a lot of different types of ingredients, and then like yeah. So this is ramen flour, right? Ramen flour, usually high in protein content, like compared to other types of flours, like udon flour, like around 11%, right? And then that's egg white, right? So that's not good for the like vegan diet, but like it's halal, so like we're gonna use it. Then gluten, right? So gluten is just pure gluten, like that's extract of like the wheat flour, and then this is the concentrate, this is the salt, right? And then this is the pigment that you are going to add to color the dough to bright yellow. And so today we are using this noodle machine. It's called Richmond Gold machine, and it's an all-in-one machine, right? All-in-one machine, and um, yeah, and it has this. It's a small commercial noodle machine, and it has this 10 kilograms mixer, right? 10 kilograms mixer, and it can mix up to like 10 kilograms of solid ingredients. And the minimum batch is like 4, right? 4 kilograms of solid ingredients. So we're doing 4 for this demo, right? And so we put like all the solid ingredients in there, and we're going to start it. We're going to start it, right? And then just gonna mix it. All the solids, right? Remember the ramen flour and gluten and egg white powder. Okay, so now Megumi is making the solution, like it's liquid with the salt tansy and the pigment, right? So it's gonna be this kind of like orange colored liquid that's gonna go into the um, yeah, that's gonna go into the mixer and get mixed with the dough, the flour. Yeah, so like this Richmond Gold machine is designed for anybody, anybody like with no experience at all, like to be able to like make um, noodle making artisan level noodles, and yeah, so like it just removes like all the guesswork, like all the processes that like need to be need some skills to execute, right? And so while we mixing and making the dough, right? It's just waiting, right? So to yeah, to like skip ahead, like he made me made the dough in advance, and so she put the dough in a plastic bag, right? And then so that was the resting she was doing, right? It's the resting process after mixing. And look at this dough, right? Like the color, that's that's very like bright yellow color, right? And this dough is like I said like 36%, 37%, like hydration ratio, right? Like amount of liquid, like that's added to the flour. That's fairly big amount of liquid that's added to the flour to make this dough. But so you're going to first, yeah, make a sheet of dough. This is just crumbs of dough, and then you're going to feed it to the roller, right? Feed it to the roller, and then make a sheet of dough, right? Make a sheet of dough, and so yeah, this is the part like this, machine is very good at, like just kind of well automatic, right? Automatically winding the dough into the rolling pin, right? So like, and then just feeding the cell is just automatic, right? And then so once you place the dough like in the conveyor or dough hopper, you don't have to do anything. You just set it, and you can't forget it, but like you just set it, right? And then the machine does it for you. Um, and then oh, what happened, right? So making me kind of waved her hand like this like uh, it's like kind of well there's a sensor like you can't see, but like there's an invisible like beam like curtain light going, right? So that like when you wave your hand or like try to put your hand in there, like it just stops, right? It just stops. This is one of the like most advanced like safety features, that's well installed in the commercial noodle making machines. And so like if you try to put your hand in there, to do some work or something like that, like yeah, the machine stops. And so that's the curtain light sensor system. Okay, so that was the first process, and like so we what we basically made was like a rough sheet of dough, and then we're making we want to, because this dough is still fragile, right? So we want to make it stronger, more firm. To do that, we want to separate it, right? We want to separate it into two sheets, and yeah, what we want to do is like we want to combine them, right? Combine like these two separate sheets into one through the roller. So like, we are going to feed it. We're going to feed it to the roller. Yeah, and then as you can see, like there are some kind of breaks and like some holes, right, in the dough, and that's normal. Because like we force that, crumbs, right, crumbs dough into the roller, and then like kind of force them into like this sheet of dough, right? So they're still rough, but we're going to make them firm by combining them. So just basically what you need to do is like we just need like kind of the first like edge of the dough, like wind it onto the rolling pin, and then like it just does it automatically. Like, the rest of it just is done by the machine automatically. So basically, you don't have to be there. Like you can just like, well, probably like, you know, the, good thing is like you not have to be engaged like all the time, right? Like you have like some small, chores like tasks like, on the side, and like while the machine is doing this job, right, for you, you can do other things. Um, so that's one thing, right? So combining process, and so you maybe will like notice that like, well, the dough that's coming out, right, the other side, looks smoother, right, smoother, with no holes, no breaks, definitely smoother, and it's getting stronger with better gluten structures being formed through this process of combining, right, and and we want to do like another round of this combined process, just to make sure that it's yeah, the dough is like strong enough, like the dough has like strong enough like gluten structure inside, right? And what like we just made it was like just, well, turn on the duster is like, well, positioned on the rear of the machine, and like it start dusting, right? Just start dusting, and actually right now like the conveyor belt is like actually moving, right? So that that it's sending the dusting powder, right? Dusting powder like to the front, and so when this dough gets combined, right? They're like into one sheet, and that this sheet gets the you know gets dusted, right? Gets dusted by like on the, but like the only the outer side of the dough, right? Outer surface of the dough gets dusted, not the inner sides, not the inner sides. Like inner sides are getting like well combined together, right? So that they're like they're combined well, but like on the outer side, right? Outer side of the dough, it's like it's getting dusted, because like from this one on, we don't want this dough to be stuck together. Okay, so that's a dough that's gone through the second combining process. So after second combine process, right? Like or after the combine process, um, yeah, we'll just like thin it, right? We'll just thin it to the final thickness, and yeah, but like we can't really thin it like drastically. We can't go from like 3 millimeter to 1 millimeter or something because that would just like damage the gluten structure. We worked so hard to like develop so far, right? And so we want to go gradually, thin it a little by little, and then yeah. So we've been doing this, yeah, the like following the rule of like 30% reduction rule. So like every round of seating, like we just thin it like at the 30%, uh, yeah, thinner, right? Like we just thin it like by 30%, like from previous like thickness. So when it was like 3 millimeter, right? We thin it at like 2 millimeter next round. It's like 30% less thicker, right? And so yeah, 3 millimeter to 2 millimeter, and 2 millimeter from 2 millimeter to 1.5 millimeter, right? And then yeah, and then like when the dough is thin enough, right? Um, to the point where like okay, we can start cutting it, right? We can start cutting like we can start cutting into noodle strands. Then yeah, we want to like measure the actual thickness, right? Actual thickness though, because even though like we are thinning it at like 1.5 millimeter right now, the actual thickness is always bigger, because it's we're talking about dough, right? Like gluten, dough like powered by gluten, and it always expands, right? Expands after it's going through the roller gap and bounces back, right? And so it's a good idea to yeah, check the thickness, actual thickness before and then see how much, right? How much it bounces back, right? So that um, you know what roller gap you need to set um, to yeah. Okay, that's 2 millimeter. Yeah, that's 2 millimeter even. So there's a difference of like 0.5 millimeter, right? And so I think she's aiming to uh, cut it. I mean, thin it. Like I mean the final thickness to be 1.7 millimeter, and because then so she set the roll gap to like 1.2, and then when the machine like thin the dough like that 1.2, and then there's a 0.5 millimeter difference, right? So like the dough bounces back by 0.5 millimeter, and so the final thickness will be like 1.7, right? Okay, and yeah, and then we're gonna go into cutting more, and so we're gonna use this uh, the cutter, and look at the back of the cutter, right? Like so, she said that the parts, right? Like that's a silicone plate, and this is a number 18 cutter, and that's 18, yeah, 18 cutter, and so the each strand of noodle, like the width is the controlled by the each group, right? Each like width of each group, right? And then the thickness is controlled by the roller gap, and so and the parts that she put in the back of the cutter, silicone plates, um, are going to block the noodles, and then block the noodles that are coming out of the cutter, right? And then yeah, they it helps the noodles to be curled in the process. All right, let's go and name. All right, Okay. So set that duster like right on the dough that's going into the doshidori that's going to the cutter, right? So you can dust directly onto the dough that's going right to the cutter. And look at the curled noodles, right? Like they like pretty the yeah the level like curliness how much like how cold do you want the noodles to be it can be controlled yeah then also like you can control the serving size by changing the noodle length just it's very easy like you just touch that the volume right volume it's very easy to do that and it's um, automatically making it curly on the noodles. And yeah, this is the kind of perfect curliness for kind of this type of noodle, like, kind of miso ramen, sort of, um, kind of strong image, like, again, like, the Sapporo miso ramen kind of type of noodles. Yeah, this is the kind of perfect um, curliness that you want on your miso ramen noodles. So it's great that like she's catching the noodles where she's taking noodles like at that height, so that it's very visible. Like the customers can see how you make noodles and like yeah it's because the customer can like clearly see what the noodles coming out. So it's a very good um, kind of showcase like equipment that you can have like at your restaurant and you can literally showcase it to show it to the customer. Yeah, so this is the noodles that are really good for halal miso ramen, and we're gonna bring them to the kitchen right now and see see our instructor and um, yeah, okay. This is our showroom and this is our showroom and then it's our kitchen and yeah, so this is our kitchen and this is where we in-person class, in-person like ramen course. And actually, we've been doing like yeah, actual like real ramen course like every other month, like on and off, like here in Kagawa. And yeah, so we're lucky to have like Mr. Misano, our instructor, to show us the today like halal miso ramen. So thank you, Misano.
ではよろしくお願いします。で今日はハラル向けの味噌ラーメンを作っていきます。でハラルっていうのはイスラムの信者である人たちが、食べられる食品のことなんですけど、ハラルで禁止されているのが、豚肉だったり、条件に沿って処理されていない食肉だったり、アルコールだったりします。で、通常味噌ラーメンには禁止されているものが入ってます。この、色付けて書いているところになるんですけど、動物系の、スープも使っているので、そこもダメになるし、アルコールが入っている元だれもちょっとダメになっちゃいます。
Okay, so yeah, halal miso ramen, like we're gonna do that today, and then so halal, like they, as I was talking about, right? Like there are a lot of like ingredients that are not okay to be used, right? Like, and well, namely, pork, like animal meats, like seafood meats, like that are not treated like in the proper ways. And then the alcohol, like we talked about, like I don't know, seasoning that use alcohol. So if you're making like regular miso ramen, like there are a lot of them that that are not okay, prohibited in the halal diet, right? And then so some like of course soup stock, right? There's like pork. I mean pork, like that's right there, right? I mean they're not okay. And tare, the miso dare and like vinegar. I mean they're like they contain like some alcohol content, so they're not okay to be used. So yeah, so we kind of convert all these like recipes into halal miso ramen.
でですね、禁止されている食材を使ったものをうまく他のもので代用していきます。
Yeah, so we just just replace all these like prohibited like ingredients with ingredients that are okay to be used in halal ramen.
まずスープベースはこれ動物系使っているので、豆乳を代わりに使ってあげて深みを出します。
Yeah, so like for animal stock, based stock, right, that we use like in the regular miso ramen, like we replace them with the soy milk and water to like kind of richness.
元だれの中の味噌だれなんですけど、ここにもアルコールが入っているので、これをまたハラル対応に作り変えます。
Yeah, so white miso dare, like we use in the regular miso ramen, which contains the alcohol, right? So like we're gonna replace it with halal white miso dare.
それぞれ代用するんですけど、詳しい作り方はヤマトオンライン麺スクールとかヤマトラーメン学校の方で教えさせてもらってます。
Yeah, so like we're gonna replace each of these like prohibited like ingredients with okay ingredients, right? Halal okay ingredients. And we're not gonna go into like details like how we make each of them, but like you can check out like our online course, right? Where you can find details like how you can make each of these ingredients and the components.
では実際に作っていきましょう。はい、
Okay, so let's start making halal miso ramen.
でまず元だれですね。ここに出してるんですけど、これが一応ハラル代用の味噌だれっていうのをまず作り変えました。
Okay, so that's a tare that we're gonna use, right? Like that's the miso tare, that's sort of like converted, like made for halal.
で先ほどレシピにあった分量通りに元だれを入れていきます。
Yeah, so as you saw in the recipe, like these ingredients and the amount, right? The volume we specified in the recipe. We're gonna add them to the bowl.
ちゃんと一個一個測りながら作っていきます。
Yeah, so like in our ramen plate, we weigh each of the ingredients, right, on the scale.
でこの味噌が 50g 入れてます。
Yeah, so the miso tare, like that's 50 grams, right?
次、米酢が 3g 入れます。
And this is the rice vinegar, 3 grams.
で合わせ酢っていうものがちょっとアルコールが入ってますので、アルコールの入ってないものに代用してます。
Yeah, so the blended vinegar that we have in like regular miso ramen, like it contains alcohol. So like I'm using that one that does not have like any alcohol content.
次、ナンプラーですね、1g 入れます。
This is the fish sauce, 1 gram.
で、醤油系の元だれもハラル代用のものに変えてます。
And this is the soy sauce tare that we use, right? Like in the regular miso ramen, like the shoyu tare, like we use is like contains alcohol again, like so we changed it to the halal shoyu tare.
本来であれば醤油だれちょっともう少し少ないんですけど、今回はスープベースがちょっと薄くなるので濃いめに入れてます。
Right, so usually like we don't use like this much of the soy sauce tare, but like but like in the halal miso ramen, like this particular recipe, the soup stock is like kind of diluted, kind of like with the water. So like we're using a bit more of the soy tare this recipe.
で塩ベースの
And this salt-based, the tare, right? And then like this pretty good salt-based tare like kombu.
スイートチリも入れて、ちょっとピリッとさせます。
Yeah, so this is sweet chili, 4 grams, and just make it like a little spicy.
でこれで元だれがすべて合わさりました。
Right, so like this is the old motodare that we use for this particular dish.
で、一旦麺を茹でます。
Right, so once you do that, right, once you're done with that, let's start cooking the noodles.
先ほど作ってもらった麺ですね。
Yeah, so I'm gonna use the freshly made noodles.
場所移動しますね。でしっかり沸騰しているお湯に入れます。
Yeah, so we can't emphasize it enough, but like every time like we do this, like we yeah, say it, but like make sure that like water is boiling before you add the noodles in, right? Because a lot of people, even yeah, even like professional chefs, don't know how to cook noodles properly. So yeah, we can't emphasize it enough to be for those we like who want to serve like good noodles. Um, to yeah, make sure that like water is boiling, like rolling boiling before you put the noodles in.
麺を入れたら温度が下がるので再沸騰をちょっと待ちます。
Yeah, especially this is like very thick noodles, and so like when you put the noodles in, right, the water temperature like drops, right? So like we want to make sure that like you're boiling again after you put the noodles before yeah.
でですね、再沸騰したら少しポコポコするくらいで落ち着かせます。
And if when you re-boil it, when you bring the re-boiling, it's make sure that it's like the temperature is not the heat is not too strong, right? The water is kind of simmering, and then that's yeah. So adjust the heat and yeah, just leave it.
で次にここに今すべて元だれが入っているので、その上に香味を入れます。
Right. So tare is in there, like all the tare is in there. So like on top of it, like I'm adding the flavored oil.
ね、で元だれと香味を入れました。
Yeah. So the flavored oil are like pre-mixed.
で続いてスープを温めます。
Okay. I'm gonna start warming the base stock.
ここには豆乳とお水と昆布の出汁が入ってます。
Okay, so there's water in there, soy milk, and kelp dashi.
あと輪切りにした唐辛子を入れて少し切り。
Yeah, do you think like you may notice in the pot is that's the chili pepper. It's kind of chopped up and yeah, kind of those red thing.
スープを温めて同時にトッピングのお野菜も温めます。
Okay, so once we warmed up like the stock, base stock, right, and we wanna have the toppings kind of warm too, like kind of heated. Like, well, I only cooked it before, but like I just want to make sure that they're hot, right?
こちらに大豆ミートを使ってます。
And for the toppings, like this kind of meat-looking things, right? These are yeah, these are kind of well the meat, plant-based meat with like they're made out of like soybeans. Right, so
でスープ入れます。
running the base stock, right?
お味噌混ぜながらね伸ばしていきます。
And make sure that like you just kind of keep stirring the miso tare while you add the base stock.
で 麺も茹で上がったので湯切りします。
Right, so noodle is done, right? So make sure you strain the water out of the noodles, like otherwise, the water, the noodles, like that is gonna dilute the soup, right? So that's bad. So make sure that like you strain the water out of the noodles like as much as you can before you add them to the
で盛り
soup,
付け
right?
ですね。で、麺が入ったので、この上に野菜を乗せます。
Okay, so I'm gonna plate the vegetables.
でポイントとしては、麺が見えないようにトッピングをしっかり乗せます。
And so the tip of the my tip like tip in the plating is that like you make sure that like you hide all the noodles right with the toppings.
この上にですね、卵も乗せます。
And I'm placing the flavored eggs, right? Flavored eggs. Again, like eggs are okay, right? It's the halal eggs are okay,
で、高さが足りないので、白髪ネギを乗せてあげます。
and we want some height, right? We want like some height on the topping. So we like to place some like this. These are like leeks, leeks like chopped up like in this way, and then like kind of like yeah, kind of assemble all the leeks, right? Like peaceful leeks to yeah to look like this.
で、緑を足してあげた方がきれいに締まるので、緑を足します。
And I think we need green, right? Like we need green here to sort of yeah kind of balance them out, like balance it, like all the colors out, like so.
ちょっと後ろ持っていきますね。こちらで完成になります。ラー油ちょっと添えてます。
So that's the halal miso ramen, bowl of halal miso ramen. Then depending on like how well some people like spicy. So I had this yeah the chili oil on the side, right? So this is a halal miso ramen, and depending on like how you choose your ingredients, right, and how you subtract all these ingredients, and then like kind of adjust them with the alternative, yeah, ingredients, right? And then you could make it like vegan, you could make it yeah, Buddhist vegetarian diet, like suitable this ramen, right? Again, but like miso is like pretty very good. I mean, has like a lot of like health benefits, and then I think it's catching on like the different region people like different people like different diets. So yeah, miso is like something really good, but like kind of hard to uh, think about like miso ramen like when it's like really hot, right? Like it's like people have image like having miso ramen like during winter like cold days. But I think this miso ramen, right? I think it's very good for during the hot days as well. And yeah, and the halal, again, like 1.8 billion people out there, and so this is a huge, huge market. So the more ramen dishes that you come up with, like for halal people, like like people with the halal diets, the bigger the market you have, right, for your ramen business. So and then we've been like constantly coming up with these recipes, right? And then um, as as Misano said, right? It's like all these components, right? Like each of the components, like the tare and base stock, and then like flavor oil. Like we actually teach like how to make each of them, or each of the like in details, right? On that online course. Once you learn how to make all these, right, and then the rest is easy. Like the rest is like just you are just combining them right at different ratios, and depending on like what you're making, right? For halal diet or for vegan diets or like or you name it, right? So yeah, so yeah, we teach like all the basics, and we teach like all the how you can apply them, right, in different situations, like for halal, for vegan. So yeah, once you learn all these basics, and then and then you of course we help you guys to reach and how do how you can apply, right? In like making a variety of different ramen dishes, and depending on like what you're looking for, what your customers looking for. So that's what we teach, like our online course and e-learning. So yeah, if you're interested in, like, please check it out. And all the courses, all the curriculums are available right now. And so and and of course, like we are doing in-person real running school as well. Like, and then the next class will be like in September. And for those of you who are coming from overseas, like the Japan may be wide open around that time. Like right now, like we are kind of going down with the like increased number like COVID, but like we'll come back probably like in a month or so. Please consider coming to a real course, like in-person course as well. And please consider checking out, at least checking out, right, our online ramen course as well, right? So and then, yeah, so we're gonna be doing all these, more of these, right, ramen dishes, like kind of, depending on what you're looking for, and then so if you have some ideas like you guys want us to explore, then we'll be more than happy to do that, and then share this with you guys like in this event. So please do that. Like if you guys haven't already, please subscribe to this channel, and if you like this kind of content, like please hit the like button, and we'll see you guys in the next class. So until then, please stay healthy and please stay cool. So thank you very much. Bye bye.